Well, right now, lawmakers on Capitol Hill cannot agree on new coronavirus stimulus bill, meaning millions of Americans will lose an extra $600 a week in additional unemployment benefits. Florida has one of the worst rankings when it comes to states' unemployment benefits.
CBS 4's Jim DeFede spoke to Governor Ron DeSantis in an exclusive one-on-one interview. Jim, tell us what the governor is saying about this.
So you're absolutely right when you say that Florida has one of the worst records when it comes to unemployment compensation, just $275, capped at most. Most people don't even reach the $275 number, and it's only limited for 12 weeks. So that system, which was fine when Florida's unemployment was low, is dismal now, and that's one of the things this pandemic has shown. So one of the questions I asked the governor, with Congress stalled, why don't you go ahead and see if you can go and raise the $275 amount either on your own or through a special session? Here's what he had to say.
I would look at it. I don't think I can unilaterally do it. I think we would have to have the legislature come in.
Why not call a special session to examine it? I mean, people are right now only going to get at most $275, regardless of what.
Well, first of all, there will definitely be more federal assistance. Even apart from the unemployment, I can tell you there's going to be another $1,200 most likely that's going to go out to folks, and there is going to be some form of a federal unemployment supplement. So I'm going to look to see what happens with that. Look, if we need to act in Florida, I'll be happy to do it. But at the end of the day, there is going to be a phase 4 package from the federal government. I'm not in the Congress anymore, thankfully, but I know that that's something's going to come down the pike.
Jim, what is the governor saying when it comes to reopening schools in South Florida?
So this is an area where there's been a lot of confusion. The Secretary of Education, who works for the governor, issued an executive order essentially saying that all brick and mortar schools must reopen this fall. Well, the governor has distanced himself from that, actually suggested in my interview with him that he didn't really know what exactly the executive order was going to say, only in generalities, that he hadn't really seen it, and he refused to say whether or not he supported it. But more importantly, the question I had was simply, do you agree with the decision by Dade, Broward, and other South Florida school districts to open online only, to not open brick and mortar, and to wait until at a later point to evaluate whether you open at all, and possibly no guarantees that you will have in-person, in-class students again for the rest of this year? Here's what I have to say.
Well, look, the idea that we wouldn't have any brick and mortar for the rest of the year, that's not going to.
Well, doesn't the virus dictate it?
The virus does dictate it, but we should also be mindful of the trends. I mean, I think that you wouldn't want to make the decision in the middle of July when we were at our apex. So you're looking now. I think we may see some good trends. My view would be, look, be flexible. Don't get dug into not having in-person infinitum. Obviously respond to local conditions. But one of my big concerns, and we highlighted this the other day in the Tampa Bay and Clearwater, special needs students. The virtual doesn't work for special needs students. We've got to have an option for them at a minimum to have in-person instruction. I hope all districts, will try to get that done as soon as possible.
I just want to be clear. Are you in conflict at all with what the local school districts in South Florida have done so far?
I think we want to work with them. We understand their unique situations. I would just make sure that as long as the goal is to give the parents the choice, and they're going to work to get that done as soon as they can, I don't have any rigid timetable for it because I understand their circumstances on the ground.
So again, not fully embracing or endorsing what Dade and Broward and other districts are doing. One of the things, there's still a threat that maybe state funding will be pulled, or students will be allowed to sort of go to other schools, take their state money with them, for instance, to charter schools. So a lot of ambiguity here. As much as I tried to press the governor for certain clarity on the issue, could not get it. Now, coming up at 6, we're going to talk more about his response to the pandemic and that viral moment that he had a couple of months ago where he basically declared success, and how Florida was much better than New York and other places, and how that's come back to bite him. So we'll have that coming up at 6.
I remember those comments. Look forward to what he has to say about them now. Jim, thank you very much.